Hi, I'm John Scholes, President and CEO of the Downtown Seattle Association. Thanks for joining us for today's City Maker conversation, brought to you by Alaska Airlines. And I'm here at Alaska's corporate headquarters in SeaTac with Shane Jones, Vice President of Airport Real Estate and Development. Thanks for spending some time with us, Shane.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So we're here just outside the airport here at the corporate headquarters of Alaska, and the growth of the airport's been a big story, a lot of it driven by the employment growth that we've experienced in downtown over the last several years and an increase in leisure travel, and there's a lot to talk about what's happening at the airport. But first, I'd just be curious, what brought you to Seattle and to this role?
I was living in Atlanta, born and raised there, so a Southern guy, and opportunity came in Alaska, and it's a company I've admired for a long time. I mean, when you're 12-time JD Power, top in the industry in operational performance, and one of the most profitable airlines, I came and met with the leadership team here, and it was just a perfect fit. The culture here is just, it's special. It's a team, very much a team atmosphere. Everyone's there to lift each other up and make Alaska better, and it just felt like home. Seattle has so much to offer in terms of things to do outside, the water, lots of everything going on downtown, just the growth. It's just an exciting place to be. So we were all excited about it and couldn't pass up the opportunity.
Not a hard sell.
Not a hard sell.
Your title is Vice President of Airport Real Estate and Development.
It's really three primary areas. One is securing and leasing the space that Alaska needs to operate. So that's obvious things like gates, ticket counters, but it's also things like operational support space and having areas to basically handle baggage. The second area I work on is working with airports, partnering with them really on their long-term development plans and capital plans. So when we think about 5, 10, 30 years out, we want to be partnering with them on those discussions about what makes sense to manage and handle the growth that's coming. And then also leasing and coming up with financial structures that support that. And then finally is design and construction. So maintaining and building the assets that we need to operate, such as hangars, cargo facilities, and lounges.
And speaking of lounges, you just recently opened a new one here at SeaTac Airport.
We did. We're super excited to open our new flagship lounge here in SeaTac. It's 15,800 square feet. It has amazing views of the Olympics and the runways. If you're a plane geek like me, you're watching the runways and the aircraft, but there's also great views of downtown as well as the Olympics.
And what was your perspective coming to Seattle and SeaTac Airport just on our infrastructure and facilities here and the growth that we've had in air travel over the last 5-6 years?
It's challenging. So let me give you a little bit of perspective. SeaTac is 2,500 acres, and it's got approximately 50 million annual passengers. Comparatively to that, you've got Orlando, similar number of passengers, and it's 13,000 acres. Dallas is 20,000 acres. Denver is 40,000 acres. So we have a very small and constrained footprint to work with. So we really have to think smartly about how do we address the growth that's coming, that's not coming, it's already here and it's going to be continuing.
And where do you put SeaTac relative to other airports in growth in travel demand over the last couple of years?
It's
been near the top.
It's actually the third fastest growing airport in the country. Alaska has actually grown 30% in the last 5 years. So it's definitely growing at an amazing pace.
As our region, as our downtown grows, our airport needs to grow as well.
And it's driven, of course, by the business growth and more employment in the tech sector. It's driven by more visitors coming, and we see that all throughout the year in the mix of passengers, particularly in the summer when you have both combined.
What more will we see with Alaska's investment in specific projects at SeaTac over the next few years? What will the traveling public experience?
So that's a great question, and we're really excited that along with the new flagship lounge we just opened, we also kicked off or opened the first phase of the North Satellite Modernization Program. So great partnership with the port to basically create a world-class facility with 20 new gates. 8 gates are open today. 20 gates will be the finished product, and it's going to more than double the original size of the North Satellite Lounge. It's going to have great amenities such as power at every seat, higher speed Wi-Fi, open high ceilings with a great airy feel and a lot of light. We're really excited about it. It's going to serve 60% of our passengers, and frankly, it's going to be the 20 best gates in SeaTac. In addition to the North Satellite, we're looking at a number of different projects to try to invest in the main terminal. So looking at adding additional or expanding the check-in capacity as well as the security checkpoints. In addition to trying to widen some of those 40-year-old concourses like Concourse D, so we get a much better passenger experience. So there's a lot going on in SeaTac.
And are you seeing a higher level of expectation from the traveling public about their experience before they even get on the airplane, but at the airports? Mind.
That's right. It's really a trend across the country. When we look at a lot of different airports, and I've been involved with a number of different capital programs, concessions are becoming a really important part of the experience, and having better food that's not crazy price or has ridiculous pricing, but more street pricing, also more local offerings. I think people really like to get a Pacific Northwest flair, or if you're in another airport, kind of a more local offering. So it's a trend we've seen across the country, and it's a great trend because people, given the challenges we have with getting through the security checkpoints, another big challenge we have in SeaTac because of the short staffing we have at TSA, people arrive earlier, but that means they're also there for much longer. They're spending more time, and they really need that extra, or they want those nicer amenities with that extra time.
And now there's another option in addition to SeaTac in our region for the traveling public north of Seattle and Snohomish County, Payne Field. What has that meant for Alaska and the public, and where do you see Payne Field fitting into sort of the travel picture and airport facilities within our region to serve this growing leisure and business travel?
So Payne Field has been a great undertaking for us. I mean, it's not very common where you open up a brand new airport. So it's been operating for 4 or 5 months now, and the service has been great. It's been growing. Actually, the demand has really been growing, and we've seen it as a real success story thus far. It's already taking some traffic as well as some congestion away from SeaTac. And you think about going back to my statement about the 2,500 acres at SeaTac. You think about development long term and adding gates and growing, and which we need to do. But there's 4 main constraints we have at airports. So one is you have land sides, so the roadways and the security checkpoints and check-in. Then you have gates, but you also have airfield. So places to move aircraft and take off, and then airspace. So we have to have places to move the aircraft in the sky. And so we have to balance all 4 of those elements in order to grow SeaTac. And some of them can be balanced or can be improved upon with investment. Some of them are more challenging, like airspace. So as we think about ways to address the growing air travel demand in the region, we have to look at ways to continue to invest in SeaTac, but also Payne Field potentially, or other secondary airports. And so we're open to exploring those possibilities, and are excited to work with the Puget Sound Regional Council as well as the governor's siting study on that.
And in transportation, it's good to have options, right? Ground transportation or air, to have those options in our region is important to our growth. How do you work with various airports, whether it's SeaTac or Payne Field or others around the country, just to understand and project the travel demand? Do you find yourself being on seeing things the same way and understanding the demand the same way that will then guide your capital investments and expansion? Or are there often disagreements in what you're projecting as far as growth and demand and what some of the airport facility owners, ports, et cetera, are seeing?
Yes and yes. So in an ideal world, and this is where we like to get to, is we work really closely hand in hand with an airport to see what are their growth projections, which are largely a lot of times based on the FAA growth projections. We have our own internal metrics looking at growth as well as the other carriers. And then, so you think about a master plan or long-term capital plan for an airport, it's first coming to an agreement on what does that growth look like? And then how do we address that growth? How do we solve for that growth? What are those investments that need to be made? And so around the country, I've worked with Atlanta, Salt Lake City, New York, LaGuardia, LA, and looking at these long-term plans as well as SeaTac. And that's the ideal, is you work closely together, partner on that, and come up with the solutions that work. So for example, here in SeaTac, we definitely want to look at ways to further expand the existing terminal because it's a valuable asset, and we think there's a lot of things we can do to continue to keep that everything connected, having good connectivity, and take advantage of the investments already been that have been made or are underway.
Well, thanks again, Shane, for spending some time with us and talking about your role here at Alaska and the exciting projects you're leading at SeaTac and what's to come for the traveling public in our region. Such an important asset and piece of infrastructure here at the airport for the growth of our region, certainly growth of downtown and the additional jobs and visitors that we're all trying to attract. So appreciate you taking the time and a belated welcome to Seattle.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity, and we're excited to continue to grow here in Seattle.
And thank you for joining us for today's City Maker Conversation.